Hello and good morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our session today on harmonizing financial operations. My name is Brittany Carter. I am head of marketing here at Copus, and I'm your moderator today. I am joined by our presenter and chief technology officer at Copus, Adam Drews. Before I hand it over to Adam, I'll take just a moment to introduce Copus if you're not familiar. We were founded in 1999, almost 25 years ago, and we are a certified Microsoft partner for Dynamics GP, Dynamics Nav, and Dynamics Business Central ERP platforms. We offer implementations, customizations, and support. We also provide custom software development, software modernization, and business intelligence, focused on visualizing through dashboards using tools like Microsoft Power BI. As we get rolling into our presentation today, we welcome your participation through the Q&A at the top of your screen. Please feel free to toss in any questions that you have throughout the session, and we will have time at the end to answer your questions. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Adam.
All right, thank you, Brittany. My name is Adam Drews. I lead our solutions and strategy group here at Copus. Have a background in leading our ERP division, as well as software development, and a number of years in business process automation. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how, especially as we grow, as things are changing in the market, how automation within our financial system and around the financial system can improve our business. So we'll talk a little bit about the things that are reshaping finance, things that are causing problems. Specifically, we'll tackle some of those issues in the trends that are technology based or maybe technology addressed. Talk a little bit about what that looks like once it's complete, and then how maybe we can start to get there. So starting out with some of the things that are reshaping finance, and this is at all levels of organization. Specifically, I think as we look back since 2020, even smaller companies are impacted by a lot of these changes. That changed consumer behavior, which changes whether you're a B2B business or B2C. There are downstream effects of that. Certainly, the growth in e-commerce over the last few years. Smaller businesses are working with global vendors, as well as global other partners within that are globalized, sourcing either people or inventory, et cetera, from different areas. And we saw with disruptions in the supply chain how that can impact your business. And so how does a small business manage that, let alone larger companies? Definitely longer than the last few years, but a move to software as a service or other types of recurring revenue models as an organization, ensuring predictability in revenue. But how do we account for that? How do we how does that land in the financial system, and how do we think about costs associated with those types of models? The remote workforce, certainly increase in security threats, and then an opportunity, but it actually creates a bit of a challenge as well. The democratization of technology. So think cloud software, cloud services. Are we, we're not $300,000 into just hardware to run something. We can spin up a machine learning algorithm on Microsoft for dollars. We get access to ChatGPT for $20 a month. So there's definitely, but that creates a challenge of kind of explosion of different options. And then how are we utilizing emergent technologies like generative AI to impact our business? All of these are creating a lot of drive for change. And since we're not doing these most of these businesses as a hobby. It all has to land in the financial system, and we need to be able to measure it and make good decisions. And so, with those changes that we just talked about, what are a little bit more downstream impacts? So, as we get into things like SaaS offers, what type of compliance and reporting requirements do we have? Are we deferring that revenue? As we have more complex upstream capabilities, and maybe we're picking a best of breed types of uh, software systems flow into the financial system in a way that can we can do reporting real time. Uh, our employees are getting more used to consumer style technology, and so their expectations are changing and what they expect in a business application. Uh, because we're picking best of breed applications more and more, how do those systems play so that we're not entering things over and over again? And at that explosion of technology and more and more businesses becoming technology businesses, even as, say, a manufacturer, or more companies are becoming software companies in order to succeed. So how do these systems and these trends impact our existing systems? Some of the kind of tried and well understood ways are a duplication of efforts. We're getting inconsistent data. So we're a professional services company. We close a deal in CRM, and does that data flow into our project management system? And does the project management system data flow into AR and invoicing? And do we have the right customer accounts? So now we're two systems away from our CRM, and do we have our customer accounts, or our customer contacts? If we have overdue AR, who are we contacting? So all of these things, as we pick, and as more and more companies deliver phenomenal software systems that maybe are best of breed in different areas, we've got to look at our own platform and how are we sharing that information? How are we getting data from these 3 or 4 or 5 disparate systems, and not in Excel and not manually, so that it's not days or weeks late and out of date. And if it's a goal of ours to be more data driven, are we actually making the progress to do so? So the outcome sometimes drives the next step, which is some kind of data platform, but maybe we haven't made the right steps in our core systems. And so we may need to look at those core systems in order to make sure that they make those larger objectives easier and actually achievable. So some of the key areas where these disjointed systems could be problems are specifically when we're working in Excel. Excel is a phenomenal product. It is so easy to use and so powerful that it gets us so far these days that sometimes it's pretty easy for that Excel application that was a one-time thing, or then it became it's a regular thing, but not a lot of effort. And then sooner or later, it's now a production requirement for how you run the business. And by the way, that person's moved on to a different role, or maybe a different organization. So how do we systematize those types of things? And do we have the right core applications to support systematizing? How many of these processes are manual? I gave the example of are flowing through the COPIS systems. Is it the account manager who is taking something and putting it in CRM, and then a project manager handing that data off to a project manager to put into a project management system? Or do we flow that through those systems, and we the estimates that we're using, I'm going to continue to speak in our language in our world. Do those estimates flow through to the project setup? Does the project setup and the actuals on the project flow through to the accounting system? And then the more manual and disjointed that we get, the more we are concerned with, is it right? Did all of that data flow into the financial system appropriately? Do we have all our costs, and do they match the appropriate revenue? So did we, if you're a professional services company, did you have contract labor, and were you getting those invoices right? Or if you're purchasing for your clients, did you are you aligning those costs? And as you grow your organization, what's easy for you to track or your finance team to track in their head becomes unwieldy very quickly, and other team members, it's not we're not necessarily trying to teach our operational team members accounting. So how can we put systems in place so that they don't have to know all the ins and outs? Moreover, think about the cost of your most strategic personnel taking data from one system and entering it into the other system. That is the most, uh, that is the likely least useful bit of their time, when those are people who could be actually helping grow your business. This is a little bit of a butchering of a recent quote by Bill Gates, but he's slightly different terminology. But we're busier these days, and yet we have more technology than we ever have. That's more accessible to more companies, and so how can we really leverage that technology to reduce busyness and more strategic thinking? So let's talk about what that means, and by maybe different roles. So as as we grow our companies, and we saw this with our own organization, as our CEO began to move outside the day to day and look strategically at our organization and position ourselves for our objectives. Uh, how could we use our technology to actually optimize our chances for hitting those goals? Um, Talk about a few examples there, but some of those are really about how can we be nimble about measuring our business? Uh, how can we adjust quickly and have systems that, while they're systematized, they don't break easily. And then, as from a financial perspective, certainly being able to close month end quickly, but also know how we're doing throughout the month. Right? Let's not just wait till month end to say, oh, great, hey, September was great. We did well. But can we see that data exists within your organization? Can we see that all along? Operations, on the other hand, can be a bit of a push and pull, right? They're the yin and the yang sometimes, because uh, while they definitely have financial impacts, we're certainly trying to be efficient with the work that they're doing for your customers, right? And so, how we track things in the financial system to make better decisions could actually be at odds with that. And so we need to balance those. And as I mentioned in the beginning, unfortunately, security threats are not getting any easier to manage, or not getting any. They're always evolving as well. And so, how can we work in our system in a way that's not uh, impacting our ability to do work, but it's still keeping us secure? So I mentioned that with regard to optimizing the business for new models and thinking about this from a CEO perspective. One example is uh, as you go from, say, a simple accounting system to a mid-market accounting system, using dimensions, which are essentially classes from QuickBooks. Instead of just one class, you may have many more. Many mid-market systems have some concept like dimensions or segments that allow you to take one account and slice it many different ways. So think of different columns in an Excel sheet. And we can use those in different and interesting. So as an example, Copus has while we have business units and different lanes of business, we also have departments. And we track departments separate from the business units because as an organization, we've set ratios based on our revenue to what the cost should be for those various business units, or sorry, departments. And so we can slice our chart of accounts differently with those two different dimension sets. And that was something we added later. We didn't start with that dimension. And because our financial system is robust, we were able to add that, set defaults for a lot of accounts, and actually not impact the operational the tasks that operational team members had to do. There were very minor changes that those team members had to do, and now we have a whole new way to look at our business. The other thing about looking at your platform and choosing a good mid-market platform is, look, there, while customization historically and even today, over customization is a way to, in any regard, whether it's an ERP or accounting system or your systems, you know, there's a overkill for what your business is, and you have to balance with how that maintenance of those customizations or any type of business process that you're creating and defining with technology and systematizing what that maintenance looks like, as opposed to how you need to react or the cost of maintaining that. Definitely, at this point, most mid-market European accounting systems as a core have great integration and API technology or APIs available. Makes those integrations easier. So there's lots of middleware products. Some platforms like the Microsoft platform have a lot of that built in, but there are other third-party availability, and kind of thinking through how you might connect your various systems. Ultimately, and picking an ERP system that those can flow in so that most of the tasks that are being done within the day are helpful to your clients and not because they have to be. So how does that, what are some real world examples of those topics and some of the automation that we talked about? So as we talked about with, say, the conversion to software as a service and recurring revenue type models, those types of contracts are sometimes managed differently, and sometimes, as you probably know very well, they're recorded and need to be recognized differently. So if you bill annually, but you're doing work throughout the year, then how do you flow that in? How do you make sure that as you grow your contracts that you're not missing the renewal of those contracts, or that you don't get yourself into a cash flow problem because you waited too late to invoice? Or can you add on more revenue to those contracts with earlier and great communication with your clients? On the flip side, on the AP side, as we have more vendors and we grow, and we need those to land in the system, and we have more people who are responsible for those costs. An AP automation system where those invoices, like a bill.com or something like a core integrator, those types of systems can read those invoices, look and see if there are POs available, go through a financial approval, and if we're utilizing some of those, and some of these are basic uh, procurement type blocking and tackling tasks, but we have very good systems that can systematize that workflow for a very reasonable cost. How do we improve our financial closing reporting? Can we actually flow more data through to the system so that our financial reports are closer to real time throughout the month? So we see where we're going to land for the month, and then our tasks at month end become simple, repeatable, trackable, and we get the month closed quickly. So our we don't have to grow our accounting team to rush to close. And then the accounting system, we want to have only as much information as we need in there. It's not a data warehouse, so let's not treat it as a data warehouse. But let's combine that. There are great tools out there for visualization, for data warehousing, for that aren't that can be iterated and start simple, and we can combine that data with our operational data, with our sales data, marketing, et cetera, to create a good picture of the business and make data-driven decisions. So having a good financial system and a good data platform, when we can combine that with our other operational hero systems to be successful. I mentioned the balance. These can sometimes be at odds. We want to, like I said in the Copus example, we want to track both our business units individually, but also as a whole across. So we actually sliced two different ways. So in doing so, are we going to put a burden on our operational processes and impact our clients? No, we can't do that. Quite the opposite. We're always being pushed by operations to deliver a better experience for our clients. And so how do we do that and still get the data we need from a financial perspective? What are challenges to actually achieving these? In my opinion, biting off too much. With the shift in the software industry to more of an agile approach, there are definitely benefits to an agile influenced approach within our businesses. We still have to make decisions on the cost of what we are investing in, and so a balance between getting what you need and creating a project that fits within your vision to support the business, but is as simple as possible, can certainly be a way to success, because you can always iterate from there. And as we do that and we go through and we have, maybe we're on a simpler system today or a legacy system, we start mapping our processes to a new system. There is a tendency in doing that. You have smart people in your organization, and they have great ideas. And by the time you're done mapping your processes and looking at what it could be, now your project has ballooned. And so really being, I tend to say, ruthless in trying to actually get as little as possible into an achievable project and then continue to move there. Training can be a challenge, and that's one way that as you make organizational change, just being aware of your organizational culture and how change is accepted within that culture, and taking advantage of or prepping for what you need to do to make these changes. That's where the biting off too much can sometimes also couple. So doing a little bit less and making that organizational change smaller. And then how do you migrate that data? So I mentioned in our example, we added a new way to slice our data. What did we do with that old data? how do we tag it with those things, or do we choose to start with a smaller amount? So those are decisions that you'll want to make. So from so we've talked about the core system in general, but then if we if we look at picking a core system and the opportunities that it allows us, where do we go from there? How do we truly address the disconnected systems problem? And that's where a great core system, there's a number of them on the market. Certainly, we represent the Dynamics 365 Business Central and the Microsoft platform. That's where these other services can really turn into a network effect type of improvement for your organization. So, converting those Excel document applications before they become production uh, needed into low code workflows. So, can you take that next step into a low code workflow? And now IT can manage it in a way that, or at least know about it, so that when the person who wrote that Excel document that is now required to run the business is gone, and somebody asks a question to IT, they didn't even know about it. Can we at least have a catalog of, and if we're moving these systems over to low code workflows and apps faster, we have better monitoring in place. We know when they fail right away and can jump in and help. We can probably iterate faster. How do we integrate our? Can we use middleware software to integrate faster? Can we and just because we're something integrates with another piece of the platform doesn't mean that you need to define the business logic. It's a common misconception that if this particular application integrates with this application, certainly the developers of that integration have thought about the business logic between those, but not everybody's business logic is the same. And so you still need to define what that means for you, and it could impact how that integration is executed. Again, we talked about a core accounting and ERP system to make your financial operations improve, but as organizations look at their data across the board, making sure that it works well with your data platform and picking the right places for that data to live. Again, your ERP and accounting system's not a data warehouse. So if you select a great data platform and you put only the things you need in your financial system, then you can utilize those two things together in the most efficient way. And then as we look at emerging opportunities, AI to looking at things like just-in-time software and doing things that normally would be rule-based that can be a little bit more they can be conversational, and the system can understand language in ways that we haven't seen before. I'll repeat, starting small. These are all grandiose ideas, but we just need to have a success, and we can build on that. You can look back. Many, many small successes equal a lot of growth. So now that we've talked about what those impacts have been, how we can take advantage or protect ourselves, and then what does it look like to actually make a move? Many organizations have triggers that really cause them to take a harder look at moving a core system like an accounting or ERP. Um, there are still a number of organizations that run legacy hardware, or legacy software, accounting systems on physical hardware, and those hardware systems have a life cycle. That's as once those are going into their end of life, we start to look at, well, should we continue with this system, or should we look at something like a software as a service? Uh, other steps would be re-engineering a process. We've done this for so long, but we've grown and we can't do this anymore. But if we're going to put that investment into re-engineering that process, then should we do that on our legacy system? Sometimes the systems themselves actually have a life cycle. Is it whether it's an upgrade life cycle or the life cycle of the product itself? We are seeing legacy systems starting to have those end of life. They may not have hard dates, but we're starting to see lower investment or no new product sales, things like that. If you're making an investment in the business, whether that's an acquisition or a new process or something, a new business line, business unit, do you want to invest in that existing system, or would it be best used to invest that in the new system? And then, if your business objectives change, if you have new ways to look at your business, are you adjusting how you want to operate? These are other times to consider a move of one of these core systems like your accounting system. So in this day and age, most of the mid-market ERP systems have a robust cloud and software as a service offering. There are few examples in the mid-market, there are definitely some, that truly couldn't run cloud. And many of those systems, when looked at as a as a software as a service, are significantly cheaper in their SaaS approach than if they offered both than in their on-prem counterparts. And so at this point, whether it's Business Central or some other system, it's cloud is the way, and SaaS is likely the way. So these are the types of things that you can eliminate in moving that platform to a SaaS market. Now, which platform? I'd argue that looking at the ecosystem of the platform is really important. We talked about a couple other things earlier. There aren't many mid-market systems. I don't think I know of a single one where there isn't some kind of core application and at least one or more core add-ons. All of the major mid-market ones have some kind of customization options, add-on options, and they're designed to work well together. And those platforms have an upgrade cycle that has to happen in the SaaS world. And so they've re-engineered how those systems work such that those customizations, those add-ons, etc., they have to work and they have to support those upgrades. And so the model's changed a bit. And so those add-ons, in my opinion, really offer a way that can get you closer to your overall theoretical business process flow. They've put the investment in. They're spreading that cost across many different organizations, and so rather than you paying for those things yourself or doing it manually, the ecosystem is a really important way, especially when it comes to industry specific. And how does the platform integrate? How does it integrate with the things that maybe you're already using? Have you already chosen a data platform, and is it a better integration option for that data platform? So those are different things, or maybe you have kind of a hero system that runs a part of your business, and do those systems work well together? What are the types of investments that you'd make in a platform move for an ERP or accounting system? Generally, if we're going with the SaaS model, that we would have subscriptions, and if there is an ecosystem at play that you're looking at, those add-ons would also have some sort of a subscription or usage-based model. So some AP automation systems, for example, are usage-based, the number of invoices. Other types of systems are user-based. And then moving from a simple system to an ERP system isn't just a move of one software to another and just spinning it up and starting to put your data in. It's really a plan and a move. And while the cost of that has continues and has dropped over the decades, there's still a plan and a move, and that's going to take likely external partner labor and cost to do that, as well as your own internal labor. So it's going to hit different parts of your business, and important to actually plan for your internal team members to participate. What type of integrations will there be? There's usually costs associated with those types of integrations. And then once you're live, it doesn't end there. And what I mean by that is certainly you can launch a new core ERP or an accounting system, and you can get the things that you want in place for the costs that you had planned on, and you can launch. And you can pay your subscription, pay your support, and you can be happy. But your business changes, you have new ideas. It's things are not simply set in stone, and so having a plan to one ensure that your team members are getting the most out of the new system. It still takes effort. Still takes process improvement, et cetera, for them to continue to utilize this new system. And then uh, you'll have new opportunities with a better. You didn't make this investment to uh, to solve all your problems. This is a core base platform move, so that maybe it's not even in the ERP accounting system. Maybe it's a move to help you with your data platform and your objectives to be more data driven. So how do you plan that continuous improvement so that as you look across your organization and the technology investment that you're making, that it's meeting your business objectives? What are some important things to look at when you are moving? Number one, moving from a simple accounting system to a mid-market system, you have more options. I mentioned, most QuickBooks, as an example, have one class, and in like a Dynamics 365 Business Central, you have many dimensions, the equivalent. Dimensions are a little bit more powerful than the class, and so now you could rethink your chart of accounts and maybe simplify it or reorganize it. Maybe your business has changed, so it's a good time to rethink that chart of accounts. If you do, and there are other supporting data, how do you migrate that there? What are you going to migrate? Less about the how, but what are you going to migrate, and into what format from your old system or old systems? If you're consolidating systems, if you had an inventory management system and something, a simple accounting system, maybe you're consolidating that into an ERP system, and it'll all be there. So how do you merge that data? How do you adjust it, transform it into the new system? I mentioned earlier, and a few times, I will continue to mention uh, picking the smallest possible approach. We call that minimum viable project. And what we mean by that is a little bit of play on um, MVP from the software world, but viable is important because you need what you need to run your business. And so we still need to achieve that minimum viable project, but minimizing that is the balance versus getting everything you want and having a long drawn out project that maybe your business changes over the time it takes to launch that project. Um, and then training and support. So as you launch the project, continuing to make sure your team members are prepared for the new system and are happy, and you've defined those operational procedures, not just what the system can do, but the new operational procedures. So think about it. Your job is to almost think about it from a process perspective, and your partner's job and the software's job is to, how do I implement that process? All right. And with that, We have concluded most of the content portion of Brittany. Have there been any questions that we want to answer?
Yeah, we did get a couple questions in, and if you still have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But just a few questions. So I'll start with this one, which is around automation. And I know you've touched on this throughout your presentation, but what advice do you have for companies looking to begin their automation journey? And how can they determine highest impact or most important pieces to start automating?
Sure. So, as I just mentioned on the tail end there, thinking about it from a process perspective is really key. And so, if we look at the ideal process, and thinking about what things are truly value add that a person doing is important versus things that are rule based. And then from there, we can look at the different technology options to implement those changes. Certainly, there are examples within many of the different technology lanes that can sort of also, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And looking at those from the other direction, from the technology perspective, can start to jumpstart. And a perfect example is AP automation. It's a way more ubiquitous process and technology these days, but even 5 years ago, it wasn't something that was rolled out as much to the mid market and in the SMB space. And so knowing that there's technology that's very accessible that can read invoices, bring it into the system, categorize, and do a lot of the legwork uh, is helpful in understanding where you could automate. So looking at it from both perspectives.
Thank you. Very helpful. I've got two more questions for you. The first one, you talked a little bit about kind of the project team and how internally and externally you need enough people to figure out what this switch looks like. Can you talk a little bit about what successful teams look like, whether that's, I guess, largely focusing on internal, who internal at the company needs to be involved in making this decision and going through the implementation process?
Good question. So we definitely want to have some kind of project owner or stakeholder who can either make important decisions, sometimes hard decisions, or can bring those decisions to a board or executive team or something that can get those decisions made quickly. And then we just need to look. We look at the different areas of the business that the system is going to cover. So most mid-market and accounting systems have some sort of operational subject matter experts. Uh, maybe if it's a professional services company, it might be um, people who are inputting invoices, or working in the project management system, and those invoices need to come through. Maybe the operational managers of those business units. So we need subject matter experts within the different lanes, because as you go through some kind of assessment, those we're going to tap those subject matter experts to really define and help define that process. And that's when the solution can come into play and fit that process. So those would be the key members of the team that I would recommend at the very minimum.
Yeah, thank you. The last question for you, Adam, is around like training and support, which I know you touched on a little bit, but what would you consider sort of a red or a green flag when it comes to support and training and what a potential partner has to offer?
So I think being flexible is a key. You know, many organizations, the system has most of these mid-market systems have great documentation around what it can do, and they're very flexible, so they can do lots of things. And so when you are as the system is configured and you're going into training and you're going live, the output of the the project is not only a system configured to do what you need it to do, but it is the process now. It's a new process by which you are performing and running your business. And so having documentation or examples or videos, click-throughs, those types of things can really help your team members. Some of which can actually be self-service. Those There are products out there that can that your team can take on and really build and define that process. So again, it's not just about defining the clicks you're going to do in the system, but the overall process that you're trying, the playbook for what they're doing.
Thank you. Those were all the questions that we had.
Ethic. Well, from here, if you found our session helpful and you want to uh, go a little further, feel free to contact us. I'm available at adam.drews@copususa.com. Hit us up on the socials or our website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.